Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. Back inside for the first time in a while. Plenty of match day lives over the Christmas and New Year period, but not much else due to time constraints and family commitments. But back today, it is FA Cup third round weekend this weekend, and we are involved. So any excuse before we go any further to watch this again. For me, whenever I think of Gillingham Football Club doing well in the FA Cup, I always go back to Saturday, 29th of January 2000, fifth round at home to Sheffield Wednesday. That, of course, was the highlights. 1-0 down at the break at a blustery Priestfield. Still get goosebumps when Nicky Southall's volley nestles in the back of the net. An absolutely brilliant day all those years ago now, nearly 20 years ago, which is incredible, makes me feel really old. But before we get on to a Cardiff type preview, we have had a lot of games over the festive period, so I'm going to have a look back over them now very quickly. Going to have to cast our minds all the way back to Saturday the 15th of December, which we did talk about at the time, but that's what I'm classing as the festive fixture. So it's 5 in total, which was Wycombe at home, Charlton away, Portsmouth at home, Doncaster at home, and Southend away New Year's Day. Said at the time before them run of fixtures that I wanted 7 points minimum. I thought that would have been very acceptable from the 15 points available. Unfortunately, we only picked up 4 points from them 15, which was earned with the 2-2 draw. Brilliant fight back at home to Wycombe, that first one of that festive run where we were 2-0 down at the break, and pretty abject to be quite frank, but credit to the boys and Steve Lovell and his coaching staff. We stuck at it, and Tom Eve scored a good goal to get us back into it, and then Josh Parker, we caught our reaction live, myself and Stocky on Matchday Live. Really good header, and could have won it at the end, which may have been a little bit harsh on Wycombe, but it was a good point against a side that were 9th at the time and were in the middle of a really good run. We then went to Charlton a few days later in the run-up to Christmas and got beaten. No disgrace in losing up there. I mean, our record up there is pretty appalling. But yeah, beaten by a good Charlton side who were flying high. And then Boxing Day was the really big one. Home to top of the league. Portsmouth, who, when we went to Fratton Park in October, were unbeaten at home, I believe, or unbeaten completely. And we turned them over 2-0 courtesy of an Alex Lacey strike and that goal from Tom Eves. And they was unbeaten on the road when they arrived at Priestfield. And I think everyone generally thought we were underdogs, and we weren't in the greatest run of form, when we was at Fratton Park, but we was in better form approaching this game, but it was still going to be a tough task. And credit to us, we were really good defensively. We soaked up a lot of pressure. We played well on the break. I said on the Matchday Live that a big thing was that we managed to nullify the threat of their first choice front three, and they were all taken off throughout the game, so that was kudos to the back four and the keeper. And then we scored 2 decent goals. Callum Riley's penalty from the spot, of course, settled it in injury time, but before that Josh Parker had scored a really good header from an Elliot List crossed after he'd been released down the left by a brilliant ball from Dean Parrott. So we headed into the game against Doncaster, which was game 4 of 5, full of belief, but unfortunately we were rubbish, absolute rubbish. It's probably the worst home performance I can recall in a long time, certainly this season for me, and certainly under Steve Lovell. All 3 goals were not even Sunday League standard. We gifted them the points effectively, and we only started playing last 15 minutes when Doncaster had taken their foot right off the gas. But we were still hopeful going to Southend, who'd been in and out in form and inconsistent like ourselves. Massive controversy right at the end. looked at the highlights, it seems we had plenty of chances. Dave did our match day live for us at Roots Hall and said that we were the better side second half. Created plenty. I mean, Tom Eaves has had 2 good headers that he's missed the target with, and probably himself thinks he should do better. He's had a one-on-one that the keeper's managed to get something on it and get it round the post, but again, Tom would back himself to score 99 times out of 100. And then right at the end at 1-0, ball into the box from Luke O'Neill. Alex Lacey heads it back across goal. Connor Ogilvie gets on the end of it. The ball looks like it's gone in twice. Once before the keeper claws it from behind the line perhaps, and then it comes back off Connor and looks to go back over the line again. We start celebrating, and lo and behold, for the 4th time in about 16 months, the goal's not given, unfortunately. So that's now Tom Eaves at Plymouth last season, Josh Parker at home to Oxford in the Checker Trade last season, the one that hit the bar and went about 3 foot over the line, practically touching the net. Josh Parker at home to Peterborough in February, just before we equalised, looked to have bundled one over the line before the keeper got to it, but we didn't get it given. And then again, just a few days ago, unfortunately. But the thing is, if we'd taken the chances beforehand, and if Connor Ogilvie had got more on the first bit of contact, then we wouldn't have to worry about the one on New Year's Day. But it is frustrating, it is harsh, and it's a tough one to take. But in fairness, looking back now, a few days later, when we sort of calmed down, it's a tricky one for the ref. He has to rely on his linesman, who doesn't help him out, and he can't give it by guessing. So we have to take it on the chin. But positives from that game, Dave said, were the fact that the wing-backs were good, especially Bradley Garmston, got good delivery into the box. So it'd be interesting how we set up for Saturday. But we'll get to that in a second. A little bit of news in brief. It seems in the Medway Messenger that Connor Ogilvie's loan will be extended until the end of the season, which is great news for me. I think he's been really good on the whole. Was in and out of the side at the start of the campaign, but since sort of the end of October, start of November, he's been pretty much a regular. And I think we've won, I've said it plenty of times on Twitter and Facebook, we've won 40% of the games that he's played in, and I think we're keeping clean sheets in over 40% of them 15 games as well. So much improved. Wasn't always impressed with Connor last season, but he's been a lot better this time around. Can play left back, can play centre half. So it's a great move for me. It's a no-brainer. We keep him till the end of the season, and then we go from there. And talking about him, Steve Lovell says we are sorting it out. He's going to stay with us for the season, and it will be done before Saturday. He's been excellent, and he was excellent again on Saturday. He can play left back and centre half. He's a good player, an excellent player, one that we want to keep. He wants to stay, and we will get it sorted. So yeah, good news for me. In terms of January transfer window, there's not a lot else happening with us at the moment. Obviously the biggest one is keeping an eye on the exit door, which is Tom Eaves, the main one. Thomas Holy interest seems to have gone quiet, so I'm not sure much is happening there. But let's move on to Saturday, and we do have a massive game as Premier League outfit Cardiff City come to Kent. Now at this point I usually do form over the last 6 games in general, our last 6 at home, Cardiff's last 6 away, but it's not a league game, so I'm not going to do that. For me, form goes out the window in these type of games. It's the magic of the FA Cup, still the greatest domestic competition in the world for me, despite losing some of its razzmatazz and magic over the last few years. But for clubs like us, this is massive. It's not Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, City or anything like that, or Tottenham, but it's still a Premier League club. There was only 20 of them in the draw for the 3rd round, so for me it's an excellent tie. Hopefully there'll be a decent sized crowd at the Priestfield, packed out in that Rainham end. If we can make some noise and get behind the boys, could be a really good afternoon. I think Cardiff are going to make changes. They've obviously got one eye on the Premier League and staying in the division, which is their main aim. They got spanked on New Year's Day at home to Tottenham. I think their home game before that, they got battered by a resurgent Manchester United, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer inspired. But in terms of away games this season, they're pretty much awful. Obviously, we have to take that in the context that these are Premier League games. But they've played 10 on the road away from the Cardiff City Stadium this season. Sorry, they've only won once, they've only drawn twice, they've lost 7, and they've only scored in 5 of them games. So, in it is an old cliche, first goal could be absolutely massive. If we can get Priestfield rocking, a positive atmosphere in amongst the fans, then we could be in for one of them magical afternoons. We've not had one of them for years. I think the last Premier League team to come to town was Newcastle in the League Cup a few seasons ago, and we were slightly unlucky to lose 1-0. If I remember rightly, I think Tim Krul made a very good save from Luke Norris right at the end. Where he'd come on for Cody or Kedwell, I think, and yeah, we had a go, but it wasn't to be. But we get a good chance this weekend against the Premier League side. Massively looking forward to it. Team news, unfortunately, isn't great. There's more injuries. Billy Bingham's picked up a hamstring strain, so he won't be available. Max Amar's still out with a dislocated shoulder, but he's close. Dean Parrott and Barry Fuller, who got injured at home to Doncaster, look to be a few weeks out. So there could be some changes, so we might stay with a 3-5-2. I'm not sure. Benefits of that, there'd be pace out wide, which would come from Bradley Garmston and Luke O'Neill. If we can get Elliot Liss running at their back four and Tommy's causing issues like he does in League One, then we could give them an uncomfortable ride. I'd like to see Darren Oldacre and Regan Charles Cook somehow squeezed into the 11, but obviously we have to be aware that they are going to cause us problems. They are going to have a threat because they are a Premier League team for a reason. Not going to do a prediction. I'm just really looking forward to this. I hope it's a good game. I hope we get on the front foot and have a real go and try and cause them problems. If we get beat, so be it. And if we come up slightly short, then so be it. But what I don't want is us, like we went to White Hart Lane a few years ago and we stood off them and we let them play and we let them tickle our bellies and they beat us 5-0. And White Hart Lane was a brilliant evening, really, really good. And it was great to get there in the last season of that famous old stadium. But tomorrow, I want us to get on the front foot, try and get amongst them, see if we can nick the first goal and go from there. And fingers crossed, we can have a really fun afternoon away from the pressures of trying to pick up league points. Just one final announcement is I'm pleased to say that we are going to be working with immediate effect in conjunction with James, who now runs the Factory Chat. This is James, who formerly ran the Gills Fancast with Reese Hurd. He's going to be providing views, news, discussion, stats. I think there's going to be, excuse me, podcasts coming back shortly. Even interviews, I think. So keep an eye out for him. You can follow him on Twitter. As always, thanks for watching and listening to me ramble on. We will be there tomorrow for Matchday Live, myself and Stocky. 38 away from 1,000 on the channel, so if you can subscribe and encourage others to continue to do so, that'd be massively appreciated. We will see you tomorrow for FA Cup Day, and until next time, up the Gills.